So let's give one well-known example. The people of bid'ah from the Ahlul-Kalam, they come and they say, is Allah a body? Is Allah a Jism? Here's a word, Jism. Jism. This word is not used anywhere in the Quran or the Sunnah for Allah Azza wa Jal. Neither in affirmation, we don't see Allah is a Jism, nor in negation. Nor do we say Allah is not a Jism. Right? The Prophet ﷺ didn't say this. The Sahaba didn't say this. The Tabi'een didn't say this. Rather, this was invented and first spoken of by the Jahmiyyah and the Mu'tazila, because they took this from the philosophy of the Greeks through the people they were mixing and interacting and debating with. Right? The Jews, the Christians, the Sabi'ah. They would engage in debates with these people, and they picked up this terminology. Right? And they would say Allah is not a Jism. But we don't find this speech. So now, if one of these people comes to us and says, do you say Allah is a Jism? Do you say Allah is a body? What's our attitude to this? Right? So we don't affirm, nor do we negate. Right? To say Allah is a Jism is clearly opposition to the Quran and the Sunnah. But also, to say Allah is not a Jism, which principle have we violated here? Which principle have we violated here? The second principle, right? Second principle in negation. Because has Allah negated Him being a Jism anywhere in the Quran? So no. So we neither fall into this trap of affirming a word not for Allah, but in doing so we don't fall into the other trap either. Right? We don't say Allah is not a Jism, because this is also bid'ah. Right? So we say, okay, what do you mean? What exactly do you mean is Allah a Jism? Right? So now there are numerous meanings for the word Jism. One of them is al-qa'imu binafsihi. Al-qa'imu binafsihi. This means something which exists in its own right. Something which exists in its own right. It's a standalone entity. Right? Let me explain to you what this means. Right. Right. Is an attribute of a thing, is it a Jism? Is it a standalone entity? Right? Does it exist in and of itself? Let me give an example. See the green color of the leaf. Right. The color green. Is the color green a thing in and of itself? Do you see the color green walking down the street? Do you meet the color green? Yes or no?
No.
Can the color green exist outside of an entity? It can't, can it? It needs an entity to be in, right? It has to be an attribute of a thing, right? So an attribute of a thing cannot be a thing, yes? Right? So when we say a jism is al-qa'imu bi nafsihi, like a thing which exists on its own right, it means any entity. This is what al-jism means. Any entity which exists in its own right, right? A jism could be this, could be that, could be anything which exists on in its own right. Attributes do not exist in their own right, yes? An attribute needs something for it to exist. So, if you mean by the word jism, which in the English language means body, if you mean something that exists in its own right, then yes, of course, that meaning is correct for Allah Azza wa Jal, because Allah exists in His own right. He is mawjood. He is al-qa'imu bi nafsihi. However, the word, we reject the word. We don't use that word because it's ambiguous. So we simply say, Allah is mawjood, Allah has a that, Allah has an essence. Right? This is what we say. Or Allah is mawjood, right? We don't need to use this ambiguous word. So if this is what you mean, then we'll accept the ma'na, but we reject the wording. But if you mean by body, a body, like some of the meanings of the body, a body, these are meanings that the people of Kalam, they give. A jism is something that is composed of many different things, of parts which have come together. This is what is a body, of atoms or whatever, whatever theory or, understanding that might be present. This is a jism. then we negate this. We say, well, this meaning is false. The ma'na is false. This is rejected, right? But we are not going to say Allah is not a jism. You see what's happening here. Just like we didn't say over there, oh, do you mean Allah is al-qa'imu bi nafsihi? Oh yes, Allah is a jism. No, we don't do that. We say Allah is al-qa'imu bi nafsihi. Yes, this meaning is correct. The ma'na is correct. And we will just simply use the shar'i word, or a word which is acceptable. Allah is mawjood. Allah is mawjood. Allah exists. Right? We're not going to say, oh yes, that's a correct meaning. Allah is a jism. No, we're not going to say that. Similarly, on this side, we say, when they say, oh, yes, we mean by jism here that Allah is, we mean by jism, the word jism means that which is composed of parts, of multiple, atoms, or, it's composed. So we say, oh, no, Allah is not a jism, if that's what you mean. Because now we fall into the trap. We say, no, that meaning is false. We are not going to make that negation. We're not going to say Allah is not a jism. We're going to say Allah is ahad, Allah is as-samad. Right? This is the correct shar'i terminology. Right? So what we do, this is the way of Ahlus Sunnah. We look at any alfaz which are mujmala, any words which are ambiguous. We make, we seek, we investigate, we say, okay, what ma'na, what do you mean by this? What's the meaning of this word? If the ma'na is correct, we accept the meaning and we give it its correct shar'i, terminology. We don't fall into the trap of affirming or negating the ambiguous word, because now we've opposed the first and the second principle, right? So, and the third principle as well.